Hello everyone, this is the video for Unit 4. There's only one, not two, just one. There are two readings this week. One is the Idelson text, chapters 10 and 11 and 15. And then there's a supplemental reading by Richard Soloway that I found. It's by the Society of Nonprofit Organizations. Here's the website. If you want to click here, you can read it. It's pretty brief, but it's good. I'm going to take a moment to revisit our rationale for the course. Also to draw your attention to the syllabus regarding the course midterm assignment, which you'll need to start this week and finish next week. Although the midterm's an independent project, you can work together on a single organization. It's just that each author has to turn in a separate and independently written 5-page memo to me. There's no weekly briefing memo for Unit 5, so you should have the leisure of doing it. And the assignments due as it's reflected in the syllabus. So there are many things to consider and for us to reflect on, some of which are singular to a particular organization. As the shapes of your financial management program unfolds. The way that an organization is founded, its purpose and its resources, and its operations performance will typically dictate who serves on the board and the skill sets needed for obtaining funds and what is necessary to advance the organization. Serving board members should bring expertise that advances the operations and the funding specialties. So to illustrate that, consider the challenges of revenue, expense, back office administration, strategy and performance. If an organization derives its funding through a dues-paying membership of individuals, that'll have a differing structure and operations design than one devoted to institutional memberships. An organization devoted to advocacy and research of social and economic issues will require earned revenue through grants and contracts and institutional funders and sponsors. Also, more complexity because they can be in the private sector as well as the public sector. So that's a different type of back office financial management administration. And then an organization devoted to public sector contracts will also have yet a different structure. So there are things to think about and sync as you determine your financial management strategies. So as I've mentioned in previous units, the course is organized around revenue and expense for nonprofit financial management in particular, because the operations of an organization have to align with the way the money comes in, how it's accounted for, and how it leaves. And it's got to line up with the principles and practices of external actors. So financial management synchronizes these things, along with the mission, how your revenue comes in, how your expenses go out, and the costs to achieve the organization to make it resilient, durable, and sustainable. So some of the organization work will have malleability. I'm sorry, I'm just getting over COVID, which means the work can be accomplished in more than one way. Other work will require technical expertise or capacity from outside your organization. But for the purposes of teaching and sharing experiences now, I've asked you to develop your own spreadsheet methods in the class assignments, because I think the hands-on way to do this is the best way to give you an appreciation for the work and a sense of what the staff that might report to you will have to accomplish, or consultants that you're going to have to supervise that are doing this, like CPAs or legal counsel. So here's my example. You can pause the video and read this. I realize it's small, But this is a snapshot of a spreadsheet I put together when I recreated the organization I work with now. It was a startup budget that I was sending to the Cleveland Foundation to give them an idea of what our goals were. And the categories are similar categories that I made up based on work plans that I was thinking about. So they're general numbers, but the categories are what I want you to pay attention to. And the specific nomenclature, because that's what this unit is about. And you may disagree with it, or you may have your own view, but this is one way to do it. In terms of lessons to this point, you have become familiar with the origins of your organizational data, how it's organized and presented to you and others, and how you use it to manage and make adjustments that strengthen your organization. They also address weaknesses and take advantage of opportunities and counter threats. So at the heart of your strategic objectives is your financial management. I'm sure you know that, but it's worth saying again and understanding that. So let's spend a moment and talk about budgets. Typically, the highest cluster of costs in your operations expenses will be for salaries and salary-related costs such as fringe benefits. This may not be universally true because volunteer organizations will have non-paid positions, but in organizations requiring technical knowledge and experience and paid labor, the underlying value of the organization is its paid and volunteer workforce, their expertise, and most importantly, I think, their institutional memory. It's appropriate to understand and expect that the workforce will ripen in its experience, it'll mature, and it'll increase in value with the passage of time because people will become wiser and more experienced. This, to my way of thinking, is enhancing your organizational capacity over time and deepening in your organization's reason for existing. So this ripening is an enrichment. It's actually the value added that you get when you pay staff. If you agree, you might also agree that the starting point for creating a budget of expenses which is literally the design of your organization, is among these two major divisions, salary and non-salary categories. Embedded in that are these concepts of direct expenses, which constitute just about everything, and indirect expenses, which may best be accounted for as the percentage or the proportion of direct costs not reflected in the overall operation. These would be items that underlay the costs of doing business, and they are generally in respect that they create the conditions for all the work to continue to commence. Examples might be utilities, lease payments, liability insurance, licensure, operating fees, and other coverall expenses that may be assigned to an operations budget category. But they can also be other direct costs that also are indirect, depending upon the circumstances and your point of view at the time you create the budget. So there are more precise definitions for direct and indirect costs, and you're welcome to look them up. I gave you that Soloway reading to give you some greater specificity. But the point I'm making is that the accuracy of planning and performance rest heavily on these concepts, and they require attention. They're all toolkit concepts that give you the ability to modulate expenses and revenue, because during the course of a year things are going to happen that you don't anticipate, and you may have to do that. A check for funding may get delayed, a deadline may be missed by a grant maker or in your filing, all sorts of things that can arise that will require you to make adjustments. And if you don't keep track of these kinds of issues and the cash flow, for example, you can't be effective at modulating them. Then there are other aspects to consider. For example, Indirect costs are costs of opportunity. That is real. A cost of risk is also an indirect cost. Uncompensated volunteerism by salaried employees are indirect costs. Leased facilities that serve no purpose can be both direct and indirect cost. Gaps in the time when a cost is incurred and revenue is reimbursed may be either or both direct or indirect costs. A credit line or borrowed funding to enhance cash flow could be a direct or an indirect cost. So summing it all up, we have applied the concept of cost-benefit analysis and variance to the task of managing expenses and thinking about cost structures. We can envision ways that performance measures may be derived from ratios we can create that are most useful, as you saw in the Idelson readings in Unit 3. And we should be sensitive to the many ways that operations contain hidden costs. So that's it for now. See you soon.